Did you rotate? As like I asked you to?
He did.
Rotate what?
Does it look like he rotated?
Clockwise this way.
Clockwise?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay, go. Yeah, you look perfect.
I mean, of course.
Yes, this is exactly what I asked.
Yeah.
This is perfection.
This is,
the pinnacle.
We are professionals. Yes.
Oh, you're talking about all of us. Okay.
Yeah.
We all are.
Yeah.
So once again, as we find ourselves here at BNB, a show all about curated world of bed and breakfasts. And I am Rio. This is Kate and Oscar.
Worst branding ever.
We're Bards and Balladeers. Sorry, hold on. Let me change that.
Yeah. Not beds and breakfasts.
Not beds and breakfasts. Bards and Balladeers.
Yeah. This is a weird D&D version. BNB.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
Cottage core right there. Yeah.
Or what is it? The fanfics where everybody's working at a coffee shop. We're just the bed and breakfast version.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That AU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AU, alternate utilities. No,
it's like the symbol for gold.
Astronomical units.
Yeah, AU.
AU.
Wait,
get your hand off my watch.
Is that
it's a mnemonic device from Facts of Life? Old show.
Oh.
How many facts of life did you get from that show?
That one.
Just enough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There were probably others. It's funny. It's funny you should mention that because this week our topic is as seen on TV.
Yeah, there you go. Nice job.
Deriving, like internalizing meaning from things we read or watch or listen to, and also putting meaning into the things we write or create. And I'll go with this one because I've got a relevant out in the world for this one.
Yes.
When I was a kid, watching all those shows like Facts of Life or whatever, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a youngish Gen Xer, but when I was a kid, we didn't have cable, and there were probably 5 or 6 channels we could watch because we had UHF. Wow.
Jeez. Yeah. We switched over to that.
Doubled our number of channels. We had like 6, 7 channels. It was amazing.
And you had the remote control that click.
Oh, wow.
Once we had a remote control, sure.
Sure. You were the remote control, I'm sure, for your family.
We had a little 17-inch black and white TV at first until my brother bought a Nintendo. And playing Duck Hunt on a black and white TV, way too easy.
Oh, sure.
And about 17-inch TV playing Super Mario, we had to adjust the vertical hold so that you could see where he was jumping.
Right.
We used this to campaign for a full-size color TV, and it worked. Thanks.
And we can be making
force.
Right. Yeah. And we could make all this stuff up because, you guys weren't alive, some of you, and we're watching this.
Yeah.
You know about Channel 4.
Way back when they had
and for those that were, enjoy.
Yeah. VHS, I was Betamax.
Yeah. You're a beta to the max.
Yeah. Sony should have won that. They won in the end because they won Blu-ray. So
there you go. But no, I was so I knew that I was watching the same programs everybody was watching. I'm watching Facts of Life. I'm watching the Saturday afternoon the afternoon cartoons or the Saturday morning ones or all that stuff. And so much of that stuff had little life lessons in it, especially the sitcoms, the after school stuff, the stuff that was for young, like teens or kids. And, I thought, okay, I'm watching this and I'm internalizing these lessons and thinking, yeah, that makes sense. Or also just, it's touching on things you sort of already know, but giving backup for it. Like, here's why this is right. Here's why this is wrong.
They gave the examples. They showed you, right?
Yeah. Here's why here's why it backfires to try to fit in with everybody, or here's why that's a bad idea generally, or, here's the virtue in being yourself, or the virtue in standing up for things and people. And so I'm taking that in, and I figure everyone else is watching the same stuff. Everyone else is taking that in. Yeah. And then I go to school and everyone's still the same jerks they were before they watched any of that.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, am I watching the same stuff? I know I'm watching the same stuff.
Right.
But that always kind of made me think, what is it that gets people to internalize these lessons, or what gets people to say, well, that's great and everything, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
Like these kinds of ethics and morals, those are for other people. Those are for better people. Those are for worse people. Those are for suckers, whatever it is.
Or if you already know that lesson too.
Right. But then they seemed like they clearly didn't, but yeah, the other side of it, if you already know that lesson, like, do these things help cement that, or do they make you feel less alone in that opinion, or what is it?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you guys have, like any really formative experiences of just watching or reading things, especially as a young kid, that kind of made you feel that way? Like you really internalized the lesson.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. One show in particular is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Learned a lot of lessons from that show. And I want to say between like 8 and 12. So not super young.
Yeah, we're like 20 years ago.
Yeah, honestly. Which, yeah, we have an age range here.
Yeah.
I'll say my age if you guys aren't afraid of saying your age. I'm 31 and a half.
She said and a half. That's cute.
I did.
That's adorable.
Because it matters.
So cute
it does. Yeah.
I'm 43 years old.
Oh my God.
People are going to be more weirded out that you and I are so far apart. That,
sure.
I'm 43. We're 12 years difference.
We know who the mature one is here.
Yeah.
I believe
it's definitely you.
Yeah, I believe I'm 48.9 years old as the eldest of the group.
Can you
here.
give me that as a ratio, please?
No, because I forgot all my math.
Fraction?
No,
Yeah.
I know
Because it was so long ago.
No, it's just I'd have to count on my toes.
Yeah.
So
it's hard when you're missing that one though.
Yeah,
they
say shoot yourself in the foot. And like I said, I internalized things I watched, and you just a little too impressionable.
I just want to see if it really hurt as much as it looked like,
Yeah, and but then it's like, okay, well, I know how much it hurt, but I don't really. Then I noticed what it looked like.
Yeah.
I actually think it's not to jump to conclusions, but I really think it's the capacity for empathy that determines whether or not somebody is actually able to internalize a lesson or moral from a story.
Able to internalize, yes.
Yeah. And maybe it's the emotional conviction of the story that actually gets them to walk away with it. The only reason I say that is, I don't know. I think I've just always had a high emotional intelligence, which is maybe one reason why I always took a lot of lessons from the art or creation that I was absorbing, whether or not it's book, show, TV, music. But that's me jumping ahead. That's the ADHD. But as for Avatar: The Last Airbender, that was just another example of just diverse minds of kids just coming together and learning life with each other. And obviously you have the Avatar aspect to it of being able to bend elements and whatnot, which was just fun, and kung fu. I do
elements like cesium.
Yeah. Selenium.
Oh my God.
Beryllium.
Blood bending. No. But yeah, that's just my example of being able to see others going through something and then being able to learn from what they're going through. And I think we're all youngest children too in our families, right?
Yeah. I'm even like the youngest of my generation in the extended family, to where I have cousins who had kids who were older than me.
Like I was an uncle when I was 11. Like
I was 9 when I was an aunt.
Maybe I had cousins, maybe I had uncles and such with kids. Yeah, I don't know. Like I was the youngest until people in my generation started having kids.
But I think that means like we all have a higher, whether or not you want to say privilege or the ability to, the honor of being able to learn from other people's experiences too, just by being at that spot. Anywho, I'll let you go.
I was going to say, because one of the things that these cartoons and everything that used to show, and they did two things. They either were to sell you toys or cereal, or like, to teach a lesson. I really feel like they felt like, since it's for kids and that people are making their babysitter, a lot of parents are like, go watch cartoons or whatever,
Yeah, Gen X, the latchkey generation.
Yeah. And they had to, we didn't want to build a society where these people aren't learning morals. If they're not going to learn from the parents, why not learn it from the cartoons that they're watching? Like G.I. Joe even had the little PSAs that
knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
The battle is the other half. But.
Yeah. If you don't know the battle, you're pretty screwed.
Yeah.
And it's one of those weird things that I don't know if it was a byproduct or we probably could look at this later and find out if they had to have some educational purpose or function for certain cartoons. Because you can think about all the cartoons as we went on, like SpongeBob or any of these other shows that just became comical to the point of just being ridiculous. He's Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah. Anything on Nickelodeon or something.
Yeah. Or it's
Avatar was on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, and it was, but they had a story they wanted to tell. It was an actual legit story. They weren't just trying to be silly and provide entertainment for kids. They were trying to do something. I feel like, and that's why I think that's why people attach to it so well, is because
it's timeless.
Yes. And it will be. And even all the subsequential, stories that they're telling in that world now, it's just like they're trying to repeat, at least like, even I didn't watch Korra, so forgive me, but I know you probably did.
I don't know Korra. I don't know.
She's best friends with her. I don't know what you're talking about.
But they were even trying to show a little bit about like society in that one. You know, there was a little bit grown up version of Avatar, but even to like the extreme side of it, where the younger, like Sesame Street is purely educational, but they are teaching you things. And I think what happens when it goes to that entertainment like part where it's like a cartoon, like where it's like,
don't whiz on the electric fence.
You didn't learn about that one? You didn't?
That might be for teens more, like Ren and Stimpy.
Or teens when we were like growing up, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's they didn't see it as a point of like morality or like even authority when they were just there to watch a show to have fun, like, you know, and you lose that because they're probably because the PSA on G.I. Joe was always after the credits or right before it or whatever, or after the commercial break, and people are not going to stick around for that, you know.
I don't know, man. That's what we did. And it's like, well, you're not flipping around when you don't have cable. You're like, no, I'm watching all the commercials and we remember all the jingles.
It's true. But to sell you stuff though, that was not like, I mean, that's good. Like I can still remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song. Yeah. But it's a weird thing that how, what is this we're talking about?
It's just out in the world.
No, out in the world,
like the internalizing meaning.
Yes, sorry, and why it probably didn't work very well for kids when they were just watching cartoons. Then again, sorry, let me cut you off. I think the idea is that the reason why it didn't work for some of these cartoons is because when they didn't take it seriously. You know, sometimes like you would get like big stories in these shows, but it wasn't just things like Avatar where they actually took that seriously, you know, even though they had did some silly things or whatever, and there were still kids interacting in this world.
They're just separating it from anything serious.
Yeah. So I think that's a little bit of why it works a little better in Avatar to tell moral, because kids are smarter than you think. And that's one thing I don't.
No, they're not.
Yes. Sorry, kids. Yeah. But they pick up on more things than we think they do, you know, and you can see like that's bad because A, B, or C, you know, and you don't have to like hand feed them some of this stuff.
Right. Well, and that's what I think. I mean, I felt like I picked up on that stuff, you know. I'm like, well, I wasn't of the opinion, and you know, maybe people would disagree with me on this a lot now, but like I wasn't of the opinion that I was somehow like way better or more special or whatever than other people were. And so I thought, if I'm understanding it, everyone's understanding it.
Well, they should at least have the capacity to, right?
Exactly. You know, like I could tell, like my eyes and ears would tell me that they weren't internalizing it like I had because their behavior was different. But that didn't make me think that it was because they couldn't. It was it made me think it's because they chose not to.
Or they're raised poorly.
Right.
Again, when you're raised by TV or social media for that extent, you're not going to.
Or then maybe their parents are then living a different example. So that they weren't able to cement that lesson in.
Well, and what you said about like empathy being what would dictate that capacity. I'm like, I don't know, because I think what a lot of people do, a lot of people grow up with really crappy self-worth, but have a lot of empathy. And so for them, they're like, well, I'm not strong enough to live that way. I'm not good enough to live that way. You know, especially that whole thing about not worrying so much about fitting in. I think that they're like, you know, if I'm myself, nobody's going to approve.
Sure.
But they had lots of empathy, and that's part of how they got there, is like, you know, kind of living in a way that was approved of by others, because like it affects them too much when they don't or something. Right. And so that was sort of, that wasn't my perception at the time, because, you know, these are all adult arguments, you know. At the time, I'm just like, why aren't these kids like acting better? Like, doesn't everybody know that it's wrong to bully other kids? You don't know what they're going through at home either, you know.
Sure.
But you know, some level of it would get internalized for me, and it always seemed like it was more than for other people. So it was.
But you probably were more of a kid that was willing to wanted to learn. Let's say wanted to take things in to try and understand, because as we do with anything, we try to figure out the world through how we interpret it. Right. Some of these people, like you say, probably did have bad growing ups, and that's a word.
It is now.
Is
Mhm.
now. Where they just need an escape. And that's the
Right.
only thing they went to that for, you know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you, hopefully that you're in a good place where it's like you can garner and you can glean more stuff from these shows because you didn't have to worry about any of the other
Mhm.
stuff that's going around in your world. I don't know if that's
Yeah, I didn't so much want to escape reality. I wanted to engage with it, and with neglect, you know, like again, like not pointing fault, like, you know,
Sure.
I had a single mom parent. She had to work, but
Mhm.
yeah.
and then babysitter with like, you know, 20 kids over there all the time. It's like there's a lot of, you know, like de facto neglect.
Mhm.
So when you feel like you're neglected somewhat, it's not that you are trying to escape. You're trying to escape that, I guess. But what you're trying to escape to, at least in my case, was, you know, I wanted the attention. I wanted reality. I wanted to engage with it. I was bored a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And, you know, different kids are going through different stuff, but I always sort of felt like, you know, there are certain universals here that I thought we could all agree on. And this gets reiterated in school, like, because they tried back then to teach some life lessons and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of like, okay, everyone sort of agrees. And if asked questions in a class, they can all give the right answers. And then recess bell rings. And it's like, oh, that's all out the window.
Yeah.
I think it's like the id versus the ego too, right? Like when you like are put on the spot, and honestly, the American education system, whatever, I won't go into that, but like that being moral is difficult, like in the moment, like in when you have to quickly make the decision of what to do or what not to do, choosing the moral path is often not the easy one. The
Right.
easy one is to be the bully, and which is totally backwards. It shouldn't be.
Right.
Because like, I won't lie. I don't think like,
To me, that seemed difficult because like you risk getting your ass kicked.
I know,
Yeah.
but at the same time,
Back in the day.
if you are the one to do that, and then I guess you become the top dog or whatever on the recess. I never had lunch at recess. Like I never like partook in recess, whatever. I always like was often doing my own thing.
Right.
So I don't really have a lot of experience with it. But just mostly like I understand what you're saying. Like I'm saying from a human nature point that doing the bully route, I guess, would be easy for most, depending on what they're doing
Path
at home.
of least resistance.
Exactly. And so it's actually difficult to make the decision that's best for the collective versus just for that one person, the individual.
Right.
I think it's easy to do the option that's easy for the collective, but I don't know. I think we're all similar in that way.
I don't even think at that age we're really thinking of the collective so much. It's like maybe one person at a time.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to hurt this kid's feelings. And then, you know, like, you know, not saying I was a saint. Like I never indulged in like that sort of
Mhm.
group think mentality, you know. Also, there's just this, you know, I want to like being part of the group feels good. You feel belonging. And it's like, if you're doing the same mean things other people are doing, you're part of the group. And, but sometimes people just on a one-off, you know, they're just like, I'm just going to choose violence. I'm just going to be in
right. Chaos.
Choose violence.
Chaos will prevail.
Yeah.
But it's almost like if you had to have one, you had to have the other in some respects. Like you can't, it's always the idea, you can't know true good without true evil. Like, you know, when you know, like if everybody was just nice to each other, it'd be just a smaller degree of evil. Like, oh, you didn't hold the door open to him. That's a truly evil person. Like, you know, there's just
canceled.
Yeah. Right. So it's just one of those things. Like, and I think some people are just wired to that way, you know, where, because if you think about the whole like dominance of hierarchy and all that stuff, where like we were just out there primordially to gain resources and to take over what we could. There's no society. There's no morals and everything. You can argue where that comes from. But
I will.
But you know, we needed to see the bad to know the good, you know, and these TV shows and everything that we watch and everything that, even when we're writing, I like, we are trying to instill like, unless I don't know if there's books out there that's just purely like the bully wins and like, you know, and it's just, you can be an awful person. I mean, there is the idea of like the vigilantism. Thank you. about how we kind of glorify that at some points, you know, where it's just like, because they're doing things that we can't do, but are morally gray, you know?
And that goes back to the rogue panel we did.
Yes, very much so.
Rogues and Rouge and Rogues.
And why are rogues in vogue?
Yeah, there's a Rouge of cheeks.
Yeah. Why is Rouge in vogue?
Yeah, always. Because of,
which is funny, how much people glorify vigilantes, yet also still don't act super moral, like you're saying.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, at least someone else can fix this because I don't want to.
Right. Like, no, there's ways that we can fix it in a good, decent path. It might just take a little longer. Like, I think sometimes the difficulty that people have with making right choices is that it just takes so long to do it sometimes.
Bureaucracy.
Too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
One of the things I've also said, a lot in the last 10 years or so is I think that everyone has like 5 or 6 fights in them. And what I mean by that is issues that they are willing to fight tooth and nail. And those are different 5 or 6 issues for every person.
Right.
Sure.
And so for some people, it's like data privacy, and other people, it's, political stuff. And for other people, it's, feeding the poor, and other people, it's, like not lying. I don't know. It can be any number of things, but a lot of the time it's either issues or personal qualities or something like that. And I'm curious, like, just kind of delving more into our topic, like instead of just my childhood experience, but like when you guys are writing, or, what you've seen in writing, like how do you approach writing virtues specifically, or what things do you find that virtues all kind of come back to the same like few principles?
Sure. I know for myself, like I can't be too overt about it. And a lot of times it has to speak through the actions. Like if it's like, I'm super virtuous and you should follow me, blah, blah. Like, it's got to be like through those actions that they do. And also,
it's very Doctor Who.
Is it?
It's like, no, dude, like be like this, be like that. Yeah. It's a little over your head, or beats you over the head with it.
Sure. And I just think that like that, the struggle to be virtuous is also is the best part of it. It's because like, if you're just virtuous and like you're always doing the right thing, and that like, it's not difficult for you, and there are purposes for those characters, but I don't find them enjoyable to watch really. Like it's just, or
it's to like know the Tony Stark versus Steve Rogers.
Yes, absolutely. Debate, actually, we've had this debate a few times, but Tony Stark.
No, I'm not familiar with that debate. But I have my own take on this, which is a little different, but go for it.
You just say you like Tony Stark and we'll be fine.
What? No.
Well, where am I?
I don't know.
But it's a fun debate that always comes back. But if you wanted to.
We don't have to debate?
Right now?
We can talk about Tony Stark.
You don't want to right now.
Got any popcorn?
It's mostly just like Tony Stark is flawed, but he's trying to be moral, where Steve Rogers is completely moral and just has to be that almost like the icon or that symbol of morality and like
archetypal goodness.
Yeah. Even though,
but he's not trying to be too. He just is.
Yes, he is the true just man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where Tony is flawed, even though he tries to do the right thing, he messes up along the way, and he doesn't care about playing by the rules. Like he's just going to do what is get to the ends, the means to justify the end. Right.
And he recreates the rule.
Hey, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. So you got to like respect both.
And show your work.
Yeah.
How did you get
there? But if you still get there, you're not also correct.
Yeah. I know. Like I always reference Emerson with this, because I actually really do like the characters that are already that way. I don't only like them, to be sure, but like he says something in an essay. I don't remember if it's on spiritual laws, or it's one of either spiritual laws, compensation, or self-reliance. Those are his 3 I go back to the most. And he was saying something about how like we glorify the struggle, and that, when we see goodness out in the world and it's just, effortless, we just have to like thank God that exists. But, we shouldn't necessarily say, Crump is a better man because he struggles with all his native devils, or, like if someone is worse at getting to that, or if they have to struggle really hard, that doesn't make them better. It might make them a more fun character to watch. It also might not.
Sure.
But like, I think that we see We see that in stories. Like a lot of people, a lot of Boromir fans out there.
Right.
And I get that because it's a very relatable struggle.
Right.
But a lot of Frodo haters.
I know.
Sure.
He goes
like
through so much.
but he's like doing the right thing like so often that people don't realize how much he struggles. He does struggle, but the whole reason he struggles is that anyone who wasn't already like that would have gone the Boromir route.
Sure.
And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, yeah, Lord of the Rings. But
what?
But like, I think that when people see, like, I don't know if you guys know actual people. I know a few who are just like
Actual
they
people?
just seem like, yeah, I don't, do you know any that just seem like they're just on balance, just good people through and through. And I'm not saying flawless. I'm not even asserting that they've never done anything wrong or anything. Like, but like, you don't see it. It's just so like everything I've ever seen them do was good or sensible or, you know, at least, you know, funny or quirky, but like not unethical or bad or whatever.
Sure.
And I see those people and I feel like there are a lot of people who just look at that and like, that's beyond me. And other people look at it and they're kind of jealous. And sometimes I feel like that glorifying of the struggle comes from that sense of jealousy or like, I can't relate to that. I have to drag it down to make it something relatable, which is, I think, how you ended up with the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings characters versus the book Lord of the Rings characters. Sure. Because a lot of Tolkien's characters in the books are already like really embodying that goodness or some like a higher degree of it.
So to that effect, though, I think it's because it's not so much that people had to struggle to be good or to be better at being good. It's just that a lot of times we don't see those struggles,
right?
You know, and that we need to find like,
if you want someone to follow that path, you have to show that path.
Right. The struggles for that path and everything. And it makes them more, maybe it's that whole like realistic, you know, or what have you, because it's almost like the Halo effect. And I mean, Halo, the video game, not like religious, because when you have a character like Master Chief and they are just the symbol of what that is, he is like he's not really a character, so to speak, especially if you play the games because you are playing the Master Chief, but it's
explain what he embodies for those who don't.
Oh, sorry.
You haven't played, you know, I'm like, I've never played.
No, it's okay. Thank you. I will definitely do that. So Master Chief is, it's a futuristic sci-fi game where you play a first-person shooter where you're playing the Master Chief and he's discovering this Halo ring and everything. And there's a lot of lore that goes behind it, like where he's actually like out of all these cadets who were made like super soldiers and with this power armor that they got, it sounds dumb. His special power is he's lucky. Like every instance that he has got into, he has just come out of, you know, and he's very smart at what he does. He's not the best sniper. He's not the best gunsman or whatever. He is the person that you will follow into battle and he becomes a symbol. It's almost like V for Vendetta, if you ever watch that too. It's just when these people become the embodiment of an idea, and even Steve Rogers to a lesser or to the same extent, actually. And it's like when you take away, I don't want to say take away the humanity, but when you stop viewing them as like the person, but as the idea or the symbol of it, they become something else and they become something to follow and to let lead you, you know.
You want to be kind of your exemplar.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that idea. And he, like, if you read the books, he goes through a bunch of stuff to become where he is. But when he becomes that, like when we start off seeing him, he is already that symbol of what, but Steve even goes through his own struggles of being like weaker, you know, or like not knowing what's going on, being left in the dark, that kind of stuff.
Do you mean Skinny Steve? Or
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Skinny Steve.
Skinny Steve. It's a thing. I don't know.
I think, sorry.
No, that's it.
I think it helps to have both kinds of characters because while the one kind of character, the one that shows its work, so to speak, that shows you how to get there because they're struggling the whole time. Like that can help show you the path. But the character that embodies where you're trying to get to, that's like your North Star. Like,
oh, sure.
There's the path, sure, but where's the path trying to get to?
Right.
That.
Because if you're aimless, what are you going to do?
Right.
Yeah.
And so like those kinds of people and those kinds of characters are much less frequent.
Sure.
But they're kind of powerful in the sense that they embody a space you're striving towards.
Sure.
And so like that's a lot of the utility there too.
Sure.
And I also think that one different aspect to it too, going back to the vigilante like topic, is I think it's in the Dark Knight. He's becoming a symbol in a way, not so other people don't necessarily have to, but I'm kind of just going to paraphrase that and say that that's almost like the case. And in a way, it's similar to Steve Rogers, that it's almost like people want that to be the symbol so they don't have to. So going back to those other kids that aren't internalizing those lessons, there's already a character out there, so I don't have to.
Right,
like they are there, and I don't know. So I think
I'll
it'll
continue living my normal life.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
And what is it? The McDonald's salad effect? Did we talk about this the other?
I think so.
Where it's just like, oh, McDonald's should have better, healthy options. Oh, not for me.
Right.
For somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, where you like control what other people do. And
Yeah.
do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing.
Yeah. I didn't catch
No, it's okay. And then going back to your topic of writing virtues characters or writing virtues in characters, however you want to phrase it. Yeah. I think I kind of take it in a different way. I mean, being that character is one of my favorite things to write. I like writing different characters with different morals and different virtues, let's say, and then really challenging them to maintain those morals or those virtues along the story. Because I think that's fun. I think that's what people sort of need more of in the Tony, aspect. You want to see that path to know that one, it's attainable. Two, it's realistic, and it's sometimes entertaining depending on the character.
Right.
In Tony's case, it is entertaining, let's say, for some people. And I
does
think
the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, okay. It's true. Tony's a hero. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to writing it, I think that's almost fun for me because maybe I'm living vicariously a little bit. I do also like writing those rogue characters so that maybe I could live a little bit through those characters to be a little bit not immoral, but just to struggle with them, because it's not to say I don't struggle with them. I have my moments, right? But yeah, but I don't know, to explore that to a degree, it's almost like
testing it Tesla style in your head.
Yeah. So thank you for phrasing it that way. Honestly,
calling back to the Tesla commentary from an earlier episode.
But it's almost like you're struggling with those characters to find them too. Like you're struggling with them, when
you're testing them, like it's really easy to be virtuous in an untested environment.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I maintain that, like, I've got a whole explanation for why I think that is that courage, I think, drives most of the virtues, maybe not all of them, but most of them. Like they all kind of require courage.
Yes.
But 100%. People look at courage like it's a quality. And I disagree with that because if you think about it, most choices are between, doing what you feel is the right thing and then doing something that will assuage your fears, for example.
Sure.
Assuage fears or assuage pain.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying.
And courage isn't a quality that gets you to like do the right thing. It's the willingness to choose to do the thing that you feel is right over the things that would be in line with your fears and your pain,
right?
Like pain or fear management. So it's actually more like a choice. I know there's another YouTuber called Teal Swan that gets into this about, how it's like, for anyone who wants more on like how to like be a courageous person or whatever, look that up. It's called How to Be Courageous by Teal Swan.
T.L. Swan?
Teal, T-E-A-L. She's got her own little movement. But yeah, she's talking about like how courage is a choice and like 11 ways to sort of, show that in your life and live that. But that's the whole point, I think, is that by testing these characters, what you're doing is introducing fears and pains that they could choose over the right thing and showing how it might look for them to choose the right thing or what the consequences might be if they don't.
Yes.
And so by running through those tests, you're sort of showing that dynamic of courage being a choice. And
Right.
while it's not a quality, so you can exercise it at any time,
Mhm.
which you couldn't if you didn't have a quality.
Sure.
You can just exercise it.
Sure.
But the more you choose courage,
Mhm.
the more habit forming it is. It's just easier to
Sure.
choose.
Ain't that a blessing?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
man.
that's a forging and tempering of yourself
Yeah.
too. You know,
Right.
that's, you know, knowing how to, because you can
What
almost,
you've chosen 100 times, you're more likely to choose 101st
Yeah.
time.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, because
I
you
love-
also know how it feels, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you kind of like know that situation. Or you can relate something to another thing.
And also because just if you do it 100 times, you choose the right thing 100 times, you also know, I think you become more resilient that way
Yeah.
because you know that despite not choosing, let's say the easy way out, the one that avoids pain or avoids some kind of negative emotional, fear, that you will get through not avoiding that thing.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make
Yeah.
sense?
You don't know. It's fear of the unknown. Like,
Mhm.
how am I going to get through this if I let my fear and my pain exist?
Sure.
Mhm.
But once you've done that, either because you didn't have a choice or because you made the right choice,
Mhm.
but once you're on the other side of it and you experience what that looks like, it's not as scary because it's not as unknown.
Right. You're more comfortable with it.
Right.
It's a best buddy, by
Yeah.
a certain point in your life.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that is actually just your body or need to protect yourself, though. Like, you know, because why go and do the thing that might be dangerous? I might gain something, or I can stay here where it's nice and safe. You know, it's one of those
Like
questions.
Well,
Bring up.
there's a dating coach, Matthew Hussey, who says,
What a great name for a dating coach.
right?
Yeah.
English dude, really well spoken. But like, I like one thing he said. I like this because I use boxing analogies in this. Like we were talking last time about resilience and boxing. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's like, in order to throw a punch, you must leave yourself open to taking a punch.
Sure.
You
Mhm.
can't throw a punch without, leaving yourself open.
Right.
And so it's like, in order to make an impact on the world, you have to risk getting hit.
100%.
But just like with the resilience thing we mentioned a while back, the more hits you take, like if you're a trained boxer, you can take a hit
yeah.
to where you maybe don't even have to defend yourself against most things
Sure.
life has to throw at you.
Yeah.
You can just shrug off the hit.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, you get more and more experience, like just kind of dealing with fear and pain
Mhm.
to where most things in life, you're just like, I don't need to be afraid of that because I know I can take it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, you
Mhm.
don't necessarily want to always leave yourself open like when you don't know what you're up against, because that's when you
Right.
can get sucker punched.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, it's true.
Oh yeah. And sometimes you might, right?
Yeah.
Actually, one of the like a personal example for me was not too long ago, actually a couple of years now, I don't know. I knew that I hated my fear of spiders, and I did not want to be afraid of them anymore because I knew it was a learned fear. I knew it wasn't
Right.
sometimes it's natural, right? There are some spiders that are harmful to us,
Or
right?
like, an ancestral fear or something.
Sure,
right?
sure. And I do believe
yeah.
that that's a
Yeah.
definitely a thing too. But I knew for me, it definitely, well, I don't know. I guess I can't completely rule out that it's not an ancestral thing, but I knew that it was mostly learned. It was mostly conditioned in, and
From your family.
from my family.
Yeah.
And like, I actually remember one memory. I won't say which family member it was, but just of the visceral reaction of that person to a spider. And of course, as a, 3 or 4 year old, like you're going to remember that.
Yeah. You
Right.
internalize
And
that.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so within the last few years, I knew that that was a fear that I just didn't want to control me because it was keeping me from going out and enjoying yard work or hiking, walking through spider
or being
web.
covered in spiders.
Yeah.
You can enjoy that.
Right,
I think
right.
your dad helped you with that, though.
It's true. Honestly, my dad, what he would do is he would put like either stickers or this giant rubber tarantula. He would just hide it in the living room. And so that,
You'd pull up a pillow and it would just be there.
God, it would be there. And so it desensitized me to it. And it made, honestly, that's probably what it was. It made me realize that this is a ridiculous fear.
Sure.
We don't need to be here.
Other people, it sensitizes towards that.
Yeah. But I think because I already had the fear and it was such a strong one that I just was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be afraid of them anymore. I want to be able to just go garden, and not worry about if there's a spider in the freaking dirt. Like it's such a tiny thing in the grand scheme of things, at least to me.
Sorry to all our Australian fans. Who deal with fist size, with hand size spiders.
Yeah.
You know, like you're dealing with something else there.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to Australia yet.
To them, well, you've seen them handle any of their animals out there. It's just like, oh God, what crocky? It's a little spider over here. What's $2?
But it takes a long time. Yeah, I'm gonna gloss over
stop
that.
Stop me.
But it takes a long time to recondition the brain too. And honestly, I think I was just trying to get to that courage part of just knowing that it's the easy path to give into the fear and the pain or whatever, example it is.
Easy path is easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you need that courage, whether it's emotional courage or any other kind of courage, to then do that challenging thing. And also to put work in ahead of time to work on the thing too.
Right.
And that's just like a very like boiled down, I think, example of like, you can reframe your brain. Yeah, I can now garden. I just use gloves.
Yeah. Cause a lot of people approach courage. They're just trying not to be as afraid, or they're trying to make things less painful so that they can be courageous, which misses the whole point of courage.
Sure.
But it never ever works.
Sure.
But yeah, you're just trying to like, okay, well, if I'm less afraid of this, then it won't be such a, black and white choice, and I can choose the good thing. But like, that's the thing. You can anyway. It's sort of like you don't, in any given moment, maybe you're like, I can't quit smoking, but I cannot smoke that cigarette. Sure. All I have to do, I don't have to want to. All I have to do is not do this.
Right.
That's all I have to do.
Very good example.
And then deal with the feelings on the back end, which is what people are really trying to avoid.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So they're usually trying to minimize those feelings before they kind of have them. And one thing that's fun about fear. Hey, there's something fun about fear. I don't know.
People who enjoy fear. Like they search it out.
Thrill seekers,
weirdos.
There's a book I read where I really like this explanation of it. First of all, fear is always about the future.
Sure.
Even if it's a split second in the future, it's never about what's going on right now. It might be in reaction to that, but it's for the future.
Right.
You're never like, if you're getting stabbed or whatever, you're not, what you're experiencing is pain. You're experiencing fear, but the fear is about what's going to happen next.
Right.
But anything that's going on right now is not making, like, you're not afraid of what's happening now. You're afraid for the future.
Right.
And so, a good acronym for fear was false experience appearing real. Because it's like,
absolutely.
I think Mark Twain had a quote like that, like countless examples of heartbreak or whatever in my life, most of which never actually happened.
Sure. It's the word of rejection even, like, that's why a lot of people don't start things, is that fear of just not
fear of
accepted,
failure or rejection. Yeah.
But I also wonder, like, also with love specifically, is that, you were talking about how you have to like open yourself up to these things. Like when you take a hit, you have to open up yourself in love. It's also that same thing. Even if you've had a bad relationship or you've broken up, in order to get any of that back or to even do better next time, you have to open yourself to that same exact feelings and the same exact heartbreak.
You can't process it if you're not feeling it.
Right. And it's one of those things like, I mean, there are, and the unfortunate things are, there are people who are going to take that and they're going to break. They are just, it's going to stop them from doing it again. I always make the joke that, like, before I met you, it was one of those things like, man, dating sucks. Like, doing online dating, horrible. Like, I hated it. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be okay by myself. Like, and it's one of those things where, but she came around and, I said one last time, like, I'm going to do this again. Like, I was going to say, okay. And, things worked out, thankfully, but it's one of those things where it's, even if I learned love and all the stuff from TV or from stories or whatever, it's the idea that you're not going to stop trying, you're not going to stop trying to find something in the things that you experience. Like even watching bad movies or reading bad books and everything, there's a reason why like so many people liked Twilight or any of the other countless amount of books that we all scoff and make fun of, like, because there's something in there. There was something in there that they
emotionally convicting.
Yeah. Right. that they, and hopefully if they, I don't want to say if they do it right, but if they took that and made themselves better and found something that is genuinely good for them, instead of hopefully not retreating back into who they were or any bad habits or anything. But there's always something that you can glean from any of that stuff, any of that good stuff.
And gratitude.
Yeah, like I said before, like there aren't two buckets of, positive experiences and learning experiences. You can learn from any experience, including an experience of reading something or watching something. That's how we learn without experiencing the things, is we watch other people do it.
Yep.
That's the point of stories. It's you're transmitting this to other people.
Yeah.
You're transmitting meaning to other people through story so that they can internalize the meaning without internalizing the events you went through.
Right. Or just be a younger kid and watch all your other siblings mess up. Right. We talked about that.
But I guess not everybody gets the luxury of that, right? The older kids
watch your parents, don't do what your parents did. No.
Yeah.
But like one thing people forget, fear and pain are not bad.
No.
They don't feel good, but they are not inherently bad things.
They teach great lessons.
And so if you're trying to avoid bad things in your life, that doesn't mean you avoid things you're afraid of or things that are painful.
Right.
Because they are not inherently bad.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite phrases of going through that journey, right, of that spider one was just a very small portion of it, but just leaning into any fear or any kind of like thing that caused pain, right? So whether that was sadness or whatever, is you just got to lean in and like do the thing that you want to do in life scared. Do it in pain. You're still doing it. You're still experiencing life. You're still, hopefully doing the right thing for you while still going through that either emotion or
it's like
fear or whatever.
It's like being on the roller coaster, right? You're already there and you can't go nowhere.
Right.
So what are you going to do with that? And
you can still cry on a roller coaster.
Sure.
Absolutely.
It's not baseball.
The Babylon 5 thing. Like if you're falling off a cliff, you may as well try to fly. You've got nothing to lose.
Oh, I like
That's great.
that.
Yeah.
Always a Babylon 5.
That's so beautiful.
I do. I do like the idea of there's a lot of freedom in letting go, just experiencing, like knowing that it's just going to be this way and not trying to control every situation.
Right.
Like,
not controlling outcomes.
Outcomes. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. And I find that like what is it? The old adage that says, it's more about how you react to a situation rather than, what you do with the situation or something like that. Like it's because because things are going to come at you regardless. Right. And we try our best to fill our heads with knowledge, but something's going to come.
Yeah. We try to rehearse for it.
Yeah. Really. But how you react to things that are not in your control, that are abnormal or not the norm, is more important than trying to almost prepare for it all,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about preparation. I'm not that as afraid of hemorrhoids as some things, but anyway,
just got free dinner on that one.
Got a spit taken.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, like I think the thing about preparing for things is, that fear of the unknown. Well, I have to prepare for what might happen.
Right.
Part of it is you're sending a signal to yourself that you don't trust yourself to have good judgment in real time, which can, that's legit. Like your judgment gets faster and faster. Judgment is like a muscle. The more you exercise your judgment, the stronger it gets. And if your judgment is bad, you're going to be like, okay, well, I saw that didn't work out and I'm going to refine it, but you're building it. The more you use it, the more you build it.
How do we get a 6-pack of judgment?
I think you just, DoorDash it.
God damn it. He's making a good point.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just helping.
Yeah.
But you're preparing so much, it's pulling you out of the present. And usually the more present you are, the more in touch with your gut feelings and your intuition you are. Because those are kind of a thing that occur in the present moment. Reason can take you past or future or whatever, future scenarios. And, you experience the past as memory and you experience the future as anticipation, but you experience both of them now. But if your focus is drawn towards the past or the future, if you're living in the past or the future, rather than just noticing, like making use of the memory or the anticipation that shows up to inform right now, If you're living in one or the other, you're being taken away from your intuition, your gut feelings, and that takes you out of your best judgment making capacity.
Sure.
And so whatever helps you be present and like not taking these fears for the future seriously, because like I said, fear is about the future. Regret is often like something about the past.
Sure. Yeah.
And the less regret you have, which happens when you make your own judgments, not just good judgments, but your own judgments.
Yeah.
You minimize regret. And when you're not over preparing for things that haven't happened and things that are especially unlikely to happen, then you're not over anticipating. And then you stay in the present. Your judgment gets better by leaps and bounds when you do that. But, I guess one of the main things, circling back a bit, how do you guys approach this in characters? Like, characters you're writing, even gaming characters you've played or whatever. There's examples in fiction you've read or consumed, or even in songs, like how do you do that? But like, I'm wondering if you guys have had to grapple with this, and now that we're parsing it out in words, like if it's making you think of anything that you've sort of worked on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you sure?
No, mostly it just talking about this actually makes me admire one of my characters quite a bit. Just because they're a Steve Rogers type character. And but they have built up that courage. That is very much a tool that's within their gadget of the tool belt, whatever.
The utility belt.
Thank you, utility belt. Vocabulary is not one of mine. But it just, I admire characters that make those tough choices, that don't overly think it, they just do. I guess to bring you out into it. But so whether or not how characters I rate that grapple with it though, or that
run away, like in a way that's consistent with how humans behave.
So all my characters are assholes. No,
I've noticed that.
Sleel's not an asshole.
Right, what you know, man.
She knocked over.
That's right, what I am. The big difference.
She knocked over precious rocks in like the first.
They can put it back up. It's
whatever.
fine. She put it back up. It's fine.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
She had a week to put it back up.
Oh yeah.
No, but to that extent, though, it's funny because when I wrote my first book, Sleo was a very virtuous mother, and she's already done all her crazy stuff, and now she's learned to be a mother. When she was younger, she was a lot more rebellious, and she was trying to find out who she is, and like even going through that whole thing where it's just like she doesn't have to be the best, she doesn't have to do all the great things, like friendship and love is more important and everything, and helping out and people who you care about, that's what mattered more. And that kind of cycle of knowing, and I like those characters where it's just like, again, they don't have to be perfect and they don't have to win either. They just need to like learn and be better, and that's all because
your end point doesn't have to be perfection, just improvement.
Right.
Exactly.
Because we're all improving. If you think you're at the top, like then that's the problem. Like if you think you're,
what are you trying to say?
It's just like, listen, this is an intervention. Okay. I want it
on camera.
Because we always have somewhere to go, right? We always have something that we can work on, whether or not it's humility. No.
Well, can you please define that?
Yeah.
I don't know the word.
Well, that's one way you're not perfect.
Oh my God.
I'm perfectly
I'd be perfect if I weren't so humble.
God. But
yes,
in a way 100%. Though, if you could re-ask the question for me, because I feel like I want to think about it more.
What about you?
Oh,
I'll ask the question, then I'll answer it.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
How do you approach writing like virtue in characters, or like how do you approach courage and like dealing with those things, or running how they run away from it in a consistent way?
Yeah.
I know for myself in my own writing. So by the end of book 2, I've got 5 main characters. And I think the one thing most of them have in common is that they're all improving. Like let's say that, but like the 2 newest main characters are probably, of the 5, are the ones who were already most likely to do some version of the right thing.
Okay.
Which is funny because the first 3 main characters are the ones you're initially following. And those are supposed to be the good guys, the ones you're following. But there's always hints that it's not that simple, or else like they're just really unfamiliar to this whole life or whatever.
Sure.
And so they're just kind of acclimating in some ways. But then these other two, they're supposedly, like it's more of a gray area at first. And then you realize, oh, they actually have a lot of courage, a lot of honor, a very consistent moral code or whatever.
Right.
And there might be slight deviations from it, like at any normal person.
Yeah.
And it's usually in a service of something they do believe in.
Sure.
So sometimes those little shortcuts or things, you can be forced into making like having two bad decisions in front of you and you've got to pick one or the other.
Right.
And that's a very real sort of predicament to write for characters.
Sure.
Right.
And I guess it's about figuring out what those characters value and figuring out their why. Like why,
Right.
What is the thing that's going to compel them to choose what's right over what's expedient or over managing their fears or pain or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like, what are those things they believe in enough to do that? And it, for the reverse, it'd be more like, what are the fears and pains that are so great that would compel them not to?
Do you find yourself through writing? Do you find yourself writing a lot about this because you see it in the world and almost? I don't want to say this is your attempt to correct it, but like if somebody reads it, hopefully that person will see it, read it, and then make a self adjustment. Is that ever a consideration?
I think it's not in the forefront of my mind, but
Sure.
it's always in the background.
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
Like it is something that motivates me a lot. Just like I said, being a kid, I was like, why do people not internalize these
Sure.
lessons? Well, as someone who has internalized a lot of them, I sort of want to be a conduit for that. Like, yeah, there's plenty of them out there, but
Right.
I don't know, like lessons are always more effective coming from people who've actually internalized them.
Right.
And, I'm not saying, like I never make a mistake. I'm not even saying I never deliberately make a mistake. But what I will say is that I understand the right from wrong in that. And I generally embody like the ethical side, but like this, I don't want to do that. Do as I say, not as I do thing.
Right.
Oh, I hate
And
that phrase.
because then people, they always have opinions on what you should do, but if you really try to get them to show their work, they can't.
Yeah.
Or they just fall back on platitudes or, some kind of scripture or something. Like, some of the worst, like, sorry, Christians, there's any religion, but I mostly know Christians or atheists or whatever. Some of the worst Christians I've met are the ones like they have all kinds of opinions on what you should do. But I'm like, yeah, but you don't do any of that. So you're the worst example. Like if I have to use this person as an example, like that's not going to work for me. Like it's always going to be better coming from someone who actually does those things, whether or not they have the same beliefs.
Right.
So like I know atheists who, like I would much, if I followed them, I'd be more of a Christian than certain Christians I follow. So it's not dependent on that. It's dependent on what the person does, not what they espouse.
Right.
So I want, for authenticity is all about externalizing what you have internalized.
Right.
And so I want to be more like that. And I find I have the fewest regrets when I do that.
For
and also the fewest, like the fear gets weaker and weaker when you do that. And it's ironic because if you directly try to make your fears weaker, it fails. But if you instead make the right decisions, your fears get weaker. So you have to pick, you have to make the choice before you deal with the fear in order for the fear to be reduced.
That preparation I was kind of mentioning, or back to the spider analogy, right? Like you have to put in some work around the actual event approaching the spider.
Yeah. I mean, everything really is spiders.
Everything is spiders.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all spiders. We're just, skin suit and spiders.
Yeah.
I'm not two guys in a pony costume. I'm like, I'm 50,000 spiders in a human costume.
Oh my gosh.
Very.
But back to the what you had said about the there was, I'm going to paraphrase because you said it very well.
I can kick you in the fight.
I can just like cut in him saying it again, and then you can just respond to it.
I'll just look at the camera and my lips.
Yeah,
but it's I never wanted like something that I feared to overrule something that I loved. If so, what you were saying about, there was.
What is it? What's the thing that will outweigh?
Yes. I never want my fear to outweigh what I desired in life. Sorry.
Right.
I didn't want to.
You never want to prioritize it that way. I always want to choose the thing that's right in my life over what I'm afraid of.
Sure.
And if that thing that you're afraid of is bigger than the other thing, then like you said, you have to kind of work on that other thing so that the fear becomes smaller. And that's, I think, one of my favorite things that I've been able to write in one of my characters. And that in a way, I think trauma has a big part in all of this, trauma, conditioning, all of this, to some degree, whether or not it's your childhood or recent years or whatever. But I've wanted to challenge her to a degree because in one story, she does have to choose the fear between two fears, honestly. Right. And both are not necessarily not winnable situations, but there's going to be pain or fear on both sides.
Right.
But on one side, there's love and gratitude and even some joy, even if it's not greater than the fear on the other side of the other option. But just to accept and know that is still better than the alternative. I don't know if I'm phrasing this well.
And I want to add a caveat too, because there's and this tends to happen. You get sort of a balance scale sort of view of things of this fear is greater than that, ethics. And so you're going to choose the thing you're afraid of.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually work that way. And the best stories of courage are always where, the ethical thing is kind of smaller and the fear is huge.
Sure.
And you realize you don't have to go with a thing that's bigger or heavier or weightier.
Sure.
Because it is a choice. It's not that makes it sound like if it's the weight of things, that makes it sound like you don't have a choice. But you do always have the choice of I know the right thing to do. And it means this thing that I'm greatly afraid of is more likely to happen. So that, but you can still say, well, I'm going to choose the right thing. Not because it's bigger than the fear or because anything other than because it's the right thing.
Right.
Right.
And so I think that we as humans get into this sort of thinking where everything's on a balance scale. And that's why people try to reduce the fear before they make the choice.
Sure.
Is they want to rebalance that scale.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
now they can be courageous. That's not what courage is.
Well, it depends on how you look at it with balancing that out could be just realizing that things aren't as bad as they are, though. I see what you're saying.
It's checking in with reality.
Yeah.
What's actually happening.
Perspective. Yeah.
Sure. But isn't that sort of a part of courage where you're being real with yourself, where you're just kind of taking those realities into perspective and you're just saying, hey, you could get through this. It's really not that bad. And it's my idea, one of these days I'm going to go skydiving. It's just, there is no good reason why to go jump out of a perfectly good airplane. There just isn't. But there is something to be tested when it's the idea of when you find an airplane, it's probably the safest mode of transportation compared to any other transportation. But everybody thinks you're in the air and you have no control.
Right.
So you're going to die if, and it's probably.
It is usually a control thing.
Yeah. And I guess skydiving is probably the same thing because you make that first step and it's all just down from there. You just do it. But there's a test, right? The fear of it is not, the courageousness comes from testing your own mettle, right? It's at
the moment of jumping, really.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Even before that, my God.
Getting into the plane.
Yeah, getting the plane, just
you can always chicken out, You can always be I'm not jumping,
Yeah, but then that's not the.
Somebody can push you.
Yeah, somebody can push you. That's not the. I'm saying if you're using that as any other reason other than test yourself, I guess, or to say something that you want to do, is not it's courageous regardless of how you do it or how you get there. That's at least what I feel like.
Right.
And there's no balancing of that, especially if it's there's no good reason to jump on a plane,
Right.
I want to do it because I don't know, there's there's a sensation, there's a feeling, there's an experience that only will come from that.
There's something you want out of it.
Sure. Yeah.
You want to be able to fly.
What is that thing?
I do want to fly. Yeah. That's a good thing. It is knowing yourself a little bit, it is
it can be that simple. I want to know if I can do this.
Yeah. my brother told me when he was in the military, that like he went into the military, said to know what he was capable of.
Right.
Like that was one of his sole things. And it's kind of that same idea, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's funny because like I use skydiving in an example. Like I developed a maxim in my life of, it started out as always do the bravest thing that you can in any situation. And then it evolved into a longer statement. Always do the bravest thing you can in any situation that's going to get you something you value.
Sure.
And that where bravery doesn't edge over into being objectively foolhardy.
Sure.
And when I say objectively foolhardy, it's because people who tend toward cowardice view all courage as foolhardy. They're just like, oh, that would be foolish to do this. It'd be foolish to do that. It's like,
oh, that's recklessness. That's not courage.
Well, no, yeah. Well, they might think like, well, approaching this person, I'm going to get rejected. So it's foolhardy. When I say objectively foolhardy, I mean, do other people do this? And is it fine? You know, like, let me give you an example.
Okay.
Like, I was thinking of doing young writers conferences, like getting up in front of a classroom full of kids and teaching them for an hour. And then, you know, we talked about that, the apples to apples thing.
Sure.
You know, did all that. But I never wanted to get up and present in front of a bunch of people. I can do this pretty easy. Sure. It's conversational.
Yeah.
But doing an hour long thing, teaching kids, presenting to kids, I don't even deal with kids being the youngest of my extended family.
Yeah. Kids are the worst. No, I'm just kidding.
And so I thought, okay, well, if I were to do this, does this get me something that I value? Like
sure.
I think it gets me something, a piece of my career that I wanted. So yes, it gets me something I want. Is it objectively foolhardy to do this? Okay, well, other people get up in front of kids and teach, and like no one dies. Like
I'm sure we can find one story, but go ahead.
It's just not.
I mean, the American school system, we can think of a few.
It's pretty mundane for most people. Like there's not really any danger. There's nothing really to be that afraid of. So it's not objectively foolhardy.
Sure.
So the bravest thing I can do that gets me somewhere I want to be, that's not objectively foolhardy, is to just do it.
Sure.
And so then I stopped considering, okay, am I afraid of it? Like, well, I followed that maxim. Now with skydiving, the place that comes in, that doesn't get me anything that I value. That doesn't get me. Sure. It might get for you, but for me, it doesn't get me anything that I value. And at that point, I'm like, well, if at any point it does, like I'm escaping a burning plane or something, sure. But I'm not going to then. I don't feel the need to go do it.
Right.
I don't even think it's the thing I'd be most scared of in the world or anything. Like, I don't know, like a little bit, probably more when I'm up there.
Right.
But also it doesn't get me anything I want. So why do it? You know?
What do you think of people who do? Maybe we'll go back to the thrill seekers, like those people who are actively looking to find just the thing that is foolish or reckless or, you know, I mean, what do you feel about those people?
I sort of feel like, I don't think it's wrong in and of itself, but what I do think is that there are a lot of people who don't know. There's this YouTuber who was saying like, you know, about this is an attachment thing of like avoidance. They don't understand like, you know, $1,000 oxytocin. They're talking like a cash machine that only recognizes dollar bills. Okay. You have to put $1,000 bill in it. It's like, it doesn't know what to do with it.
Sure.
It's like avoidance don't understand $1,000 oxytocin. They only understand $1 dopamine. So, and so it's like, if they're just dopamine hit seekers, then I think they should deal with that. Because that's not the most constructive way to live. You know, it's actually bad for you to like live that way.
Sure. Well, social media is like that too.
Right.
Big thing.
Yeah. Like whatever it is, the dopamine hit, whether it's validation or thrill seeking or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that's not that's usually based on some kind of fear or not dealing with things.
Yeah.
So in that case, that's not necessarily the most courageous thing. It's like, actually, that's the easy way for some people.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't inherently think there's anything wrong with, you know, doing these kinds of things because, you know, maybe you live a fulfilling life in the rest of your life. But sure, do it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And going back to the scales one too, and I think it's actually like, I respect that you say that it's not about scales, because I also didn't imagine it as scales either, like the weight versus one versus the other. But I do think people need to make like micro shifts in their own minds to get to the point of like, if they do see it as scales, well, let's work towards seeing it as maybe, I don't know, 2 different mountains, right? Or 2 different, like another image of that. And people need to slowly shift their mind. Right. I don't know whether that's retraining the subconscious, if it's that deep of a thing. I wanted to get that in there because we had kind of segued, but
sure.
It's part of the value also of engaging with the world is it's grounding. It grounds you in reality. Like I see this a lot with people online is that they think of the worst case scenario because of whatever baggage that inclines them to do so. But there's no check on that. They're not checking with reality to see how likely that is.
Yeah.
And so it just snowballs in their mind and they get more and more afraid and more anxious, and generally, socially, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's sensible to try to check in with reality to the point where you get real about what you're actually afraid of and not assume the worst case scenario.
Right.
But then even that might still outweigh your sense of like your moral compass or whatever. So like, let's say it starts off here, like here's your fear, like your fear is much heavier. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to reduce it and it ends up here. So it still kind of outweighs your moral compass. But at that point, it's still a little bit easier to choose.
Sure.
That's still something you can do. And it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to spend inordinate amounts of time doing that. You can check in with reality right now, almost all the time.
Right.
But a lot of the time people will put off. They're like, well, I'm still trying to reduce my fear.
Sure.
It's like, no, you're just not making the decision because there's only now and not now.
Yeah.
And people have a lot of different terms for not now.
Right.
Sure.
Well, like,
I mean, but there's got to be like the people who do learn and do take these stories and do actually become better people. Like there are, I at least I'd hope that there's somebody out there that's reading this stuff and is a better person. I'm sure there's like people who are very successful or they're not just reading self-help books or whatever that actually read Dune and want to be like Paul Atreides or something like that. Like that just inspire them, you know.
What?
Paul Atreides?
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Check out how that ends up.
Yeah, I know. But but just like, you know, that with the fear is a mind killer, like, you know, it's just you can't let it be that thing, and it inspires them to do stuff. So it's like as we do these books, as anybody is creative, as you write songs, because songs are a big one, and we haven't really talked about it, but
lyrics can be powerful at addressing fear.
Yeah, but not even just the lyrics.
Exemplifying.
The lyrics, if they're well done, I agree. But like just music in general, like if we go back to the very like the little drummer boy, you're like, what? Not drummer boy, but the person who drums to keep the beat for the soldiers as they march and everything. Like just things that really just push you forward. Like even if you're running and you have got your playlist on and you get to that one song and it just kicks in, and like you just, and now you're on that beat, that tempo, right?
Yeah.
You know,
or even just doing it with people.
Yeah.
So that you feel like you're not alone. You feel more inclined to not let the side down, you know, like,
fair enough.
Like just kind of don't be the loose link in that chain.
Right. Even though there's nothing to lose from that, maybe socially, if that's a thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's just one of those things where I love the idea that hopefully somewhere in the interim with all these people who are ingesting all this media and all this stuff that they are being better, and hopefully somebody who's doom scrolling through their feed is going to stop and be like, you know what? I don't need to do this anymore or something like that. You know, how many times have I like literally I'll be going through Instagram because I'm doing social media stuff and I'll just like, what am I doing? Like, and at that point I just stop. Like, you know,
like why am I even wasting my time this way?
Usually it's the ads that get me. Like I'll be like, God damn, I'm being sold something again. You know what? I'm putting this down. And it's, You know,
it's funny. I have a friend who, back when I used to write Uber and Lyft stories from when I did Uber and Lyft, she said, you know, I know 3 other people who are like cab drivers who write up their stories of their little adventures like on Facebook. And she said, yours are the only ones that I read.
Really?
And she said, because you're the only one who's not just complaining about people or work or whatever. Because I would usually, you know, have something, and, you know, this wasn't necessarily deliberate. I'm not a toxic positivity sort of person.
Sure.
Probably everyone's noticed that by now. I can complain with the best of them, but it's just, it's a new experience of people. It's a different way to experience people. And it's not only negative. You're actually out of touch with reality if it's only negative to you.
Right.
Like certain interactions, sure. But like in general, like people are going to show you some positive, some negative, and some neutral.
Yeah.
And I would sort of look for, just what stood out to me. And a lot of the time it was positive. Sometimes it was just funny. And just, how people act when they've had maybe like a couple of drinks in them, but not a ton.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
They all think they're more annoying than they are. Well, most of them do. Some of them are right, but yeah, just it doesn't all have to be doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Sometimes like that to me, her saying that to me was a neat indication that I was creating a positive impact.
Sure.
And helping people sort of like, I don't know. I feel like it's grounding in reality when you show a balance of these things instead of just, I'm going to complain about my job. I'm going to complain about people.
It's almost that easy thing to do though, right?
Yeah.
It's almost that thing where it's just like, it's easy to complain. It's harder to find the good in it, to find, just to be okay with it and understand that's just where you are.
Complaining is social bonding, just like smoking is. And a lot of, in a lot of families, like in some families, like complaining was not allowed. And so people will complain now that they're free. But in other families, being overly happy was not allowed. And so they complain because like if you're raised by like a narcissist or something, they want you to be, they want to keep you down, but you can't be miserable enough to draw attention to them in a negative way. Because they want you to be happy, but they don't want your happiness to outshine them.
Right.
And so like you would mute a lot of your extreme feelings. And there might just be this general, like, most narcissists are most at home with like anger. And so the only thing you could express the most fully would be like anger. And so that leads to a lot of complaining.
But then that makes you look bad and then they're in the right. And then they become
it's a way of not feeling abandoned by your parents.
Sure.
No, it's true.
God, I love doing all of these topics because there's always so much that we can talk about, and if we continue to be in for another hour or so, and
we should make a note of what things we want to come back to and do other episodes.
I'm afraid of doing that though. That sounds like
you
work,
can choose to get over your fear, or choose not get over it, but choose over it.
Overchoose it.
Overchoose it. Yeah.
It's just like when you chewed gum too long.
You overchewed it.
Yeah.
You overchoosed it.
Your jaw hurts.
It's Tuesday, isn't it?
Tuesday.
Anyway. Well, it's been a pleasure, guys, as always. We are Bards and Balladeers. I'm Rio.
Kate.
Oscar.
Like, we're getting good at this.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we'll see you guys next time.
Catch us next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.